Chapter 11, Wolf Sanctuary. Jenny was just zipping up her day bag for her outing with Logan when she heard a car drive up. It must be Rob for Jade, she thought, looking out the window of her apartment to see the large black Mercedes roll up, and then Rob get out with what looked like a flower bouquet and head towards the main house. She couldn't help but recall the electricity she felt pass between Jade and Rob, and she silently prayed for them to have a good night. As for her, she planned on a light dinner and the latest Nora Roberts romance novel to pass the time. For some reason, she was a little nervous about her trip with Logan, but she knew being nervous was silly. She was no shy schoolgirl any longer, and she knew she could handle herself perfectly well. She thought back to her wish about having a more open sexuality and realized she had no idea why this idea had suddenly popped into her mind. She decided to explore it further in her evening meditation, but not before dinner and that book. The meditation never happened, as Jenny nodded off 50 pages into the novel. She woke suddenly when her alarm went off at 7 a.m. The book was still open beside her, and the small glass of kombucha she had poured the night before sat fizzless on the bedside table. How do I dress for wolves, she wondered, as she eyed the clothes in her closet. She decided on khaki pants, a light yellow sheer cotton blouse over a white tank top, and her hair in braids. She pulled out brand new hiking boots that her grandmother had sent her for Christmas last year and had never been used. No time like now, she thought, wondering how her grandmother was doing. She had several hours to get ready, so there was no need to rush. However, Jenny felt that she was rushing. I need to slow down. Ground my energy. I don't need to meet Logan acting as if I binged on espresso. She opened the door to the apartment and went downstairs to the pool area. She noticed that the big house seemed oddly quiet and wondered how Jade's dinner with Rob had gone. She sat on a plump chaise chair and steadied her breathing, along with the sounds of the pool's waterfall at the other end. Breathing in and out slowly, she focused on the sight of the waves down on the beach as she let her mind slip into a quiet meditation. After about 15 minutes, she opened her eyes and squinted up at the dappled clouds in the late September sky. She better bring a warmer jacket on this trip just in case. Getting up and stretching, she made her way back inside to her apartment. She put a tea kettle on the stove and readied a cup for her favorite chai tea. Sweet and spicy was just how she felt right now. The gate buzzer went off a few minutes before 9, and she double-checked the security camera. There's nothing like buzzing someone in without checking and letting in a whole carload of adoring Kestrel fans. She had made this mistake only once, and that had been enough. It had been funny, though, to see Alejandro chasing them out by trying to ram their small Kia Soul with the massive limo as he yelled at them in broken English. They'd been so scared they left skid marks on the driveway pavement. It wasn't like Jade didn't adore her fans, but many of them were very disrespectful of her privacy, thinking only about what kind of small items they could take that Jade Monroe might have touched, worn, or sweated on. "Who's there?" Jade... Gosh. "Who's there?" Let's make it straight. Jenny asked into the intercom. "Jenny, is that you? It's me, Logan," he said, directing his voice into the small intercom box at the gate's entrance. "Come on in. You can park in front of the big house, and I'll meet you out there," she said, feeling those nervous butterflies again. She gathered up her purse and the day bag she had packed with a change of clothes in case they went out to dinner, a jacket, and some lemon dill vegan cream and cucumber sandwiches she had made for lunch. She figured they would be on the road and might not have time to stop for lunch. She knew Logan might want to get out there and see as much of the wolves as he could before sundown. The drive would take them several hours, and they were stopping for breakfast first. She took one last look at herself in the mirror and opened the apartment door. She could see the sand-colored Jeep Wrangler parked downstairs with the top and sides unzipped so they could enjoy the cooler weather. Then she saw Logan step out from the driver's side of the Jeep. He was wearing camo pants and a sand-colored button-down shirt with desert boots. They almost looked like twins. "We're already dressing the same," she thought to herself when she saw him. "Jenny, it's so good to see you again," Logan said, walking towards her as she stepped off the stairs landing. She couldn't take her eyes off his sandy, shoulder-length hair and brown eyes, but she looked away shyly as he reached her. They embraced lightly, but she noticed it took an extra split second for him to let her go as he looked into her eyes and then smiled. "I thought I was going to be late," he said. "I got stuck behind a motorcycle gang hogging both lanes and probably honking on the PCH, and they were not going to hurry up for anyone. Are you ready for breakfast?" "Yes, I had a small dinner last night, so I'm famished now," she said, hoping she didn't sound too starved, but she was, and for more than breakfast, she realized. He reached for her bags and went to place them in the back of the Jeep. "Ferns?" he asked, thinking back to the place where they first met. "Sounds good," she said, recalling the fun time they had had at that first meeting. "So, how's your work? Did you have a busy week?" he asked, generally sounding interested in her practice. "I can't divulge names, but I took on a famous client this week, and this case might really stretch my abilities. I'm deciding if I need to call someone to partner with me on it," Jenny said, thinking back to her conversation with Rob after his treatment. "Sounds interesting. I would love to have a treatment session with you just to see what you do," he said, looking over at her. "It's straightforward, really," she said, downplaying herself. She realized she did this a lot and made a mental note to ask Chanda to help her clear this limiting belief of seeing herself as less than she really was. "How about you?" she said, changing the subject. "I had too many meetings and late-night dinners with clients. I am so ready for this trip you can't even imagine," he said, breathing out tension. They made it to Ferns in less than 30 minutes, and by then the early morning breakfast crowd had dissipated. Russell, their waiter from before, walked up and noticed the two together again. "Hey, you two, back again and together? What have I created here?" he said, winking at them. "It's just breakfast, Russell," Jenny said, embarrassed. "We're kind of in a hurry to get on the road." Russell led them to a small table outside by the garden and left them to decide on their order. There's a lot of cream cheese going on here. They ordered bagels and I was hungry for cream cheese. They ordered bagels and vegan cream cheese along with the organic orange juice, filling the time in between bites with small talk about their families. As they ate, a strange calm came over Jenny. Everything felt so right at this moment. The feel of the early morning breeze on her skin, the taste of the food, and the energy of this man sitting across from her. Nothing was lost on her at this moment, and she felt a synchronicity happening that she hadn't felt in a while. She recalled a quote from one of her favorite books, The Secret of Shambhala by James Redfield. The quote, "The third extension involves another expectation that our prayer field go out and boost the level of energies in others, lifting them into their own connection with the divine within and into their own higher self-intuition. This, of course, increases the likelihood of them giving us intuitive information that can further enhance our own level of synchronicity." End quote. She had been silently praying for a change in her life. She understood the process of manifesting what she wanted, but up until now, finding her true love in this lifetime had eluded her. She realized a while back that she was trying too hard, and the antidote for that was to stop trying to attain whatever was seemingly not happening and do something else that she enjoyed. So she had immersed herself in her work because she loved it too, but she held to the intention that she would find that special someone when she was ready. And then synchronicity had brought them together at lunch the other day, and now here they were again. Logan waved his hands in front of her eyes. "Jenny, are you okay? You look deep in thought," he said, realizing that same tendency in himself. "Yes, I'm so sorry. My mind just wandered to something I had read a while back," she said quietly. "One day I'll tell you all about it." "That sounds mysterious," he said, "and I'll take you up on that one day," he said, smiling and looking deep into her eyes. She felt that same heat rise up from within her lower body, and she wished she had the perfect thing to say at that moment, something sweet and sexy like Jade would have said, but nothing came to her, so she stayed quiet and broke his gaze to look out towards the ocean. Logan was feeling it too, more noticeably this time, but he also didn't know what to say. Whenever he looked at Jenny, he had two thoughts. Do I open my heart to this girl? And when are we going to make love? Clearing his throat, he said, "Let's talk about what to expect at the sanctuary." Okay, she said, giving him her full attention. The wolves are kept in their cages at night, but the caretakers will let them out when we get there. They don't always do this, but they know I'm coming to hang out with them today, and I've spent a lot of time building a bond with them. They won't recognize you, of course, but let's see how they react to you. Maybe with your energy work, they will sense that you're a friendly presence and bond with you sooner. Is there anything you want me to do specifically? She asked. Yes, I'll go in first, and then you will follow behind me. If you can gain the trust of the pack leader, then the rest will follow his lead. You'll need to act calm and in your power, so he knows he has nothing to fear. My grandmother would call this filling yourself up with power. You may already do something similar in your work. Yes, she has said, there is a shamanic technique of pretty much the same concept. I work with my power animal and a special song meant just for me that fills me with divine power and light. I can try that in this situation and see what happens. Have you ever worked with animals before? He asked her. No, but I've always wanted to, she said, realizing this was the second time that question had been presented to her. Parrot guidance. She always took notice when things came up repeatedly, as she knew this was God's way of communicating next steps along the path. They finished their breakfast, waved goodbye to Russell, and made their way back to the Jeep. We've got a couple of hours, so sit back and relax, he said, helping her in. Some of the terrain by the shelter can get pretty bumpy. The rest of the drive was spent talking about their childhoods. Logan reminisced about his grandmother and the Native American healing techniques she had taught him as a boy. We'll have to compare techniques one day, he said, sounding excited about the idea. Yes, I would love that, Jenny said, telling him about Chandra and Reiki and Jesse and shamanism and the faith in God to heal anything that her grandparents had taught her. God has never failed me, she said. Logan was transfixed and excited by the many things they could learn from each other. Several hours later, they reached the sanctuary, and Logan pulled the Jeep up in front and came around to help Jenny out. The sun was high in the sky, but the late September weather was a little cooler than normal. We're getting a reprieve today, he said. The weather is usually much hotter. Let me check in and let Harriet know we're here. Harriet and Tom, her husband, ran the sanctuary along with a handful of volunteers and students who were working there as part of an internship. We're all checked in, he said, returning from the office. By the way, Harriet wants to meet you. She's really excited that I brought you out today, for more reasons than one, he said, laughing. Harriet had taken on the role of the surrogate mother where Logan was concerned. She wanted nothing more than to see him settle down and married. She also had been priming him for a while now to come work at the sanctuary, but he had been having nothing to do with that idea. He still thought his place was in the technology business, although to any onlooker, it certainly wasn't doing him any good. He was tired and anxious whenever he was in the office and used caffeine to get through the day and alcohol to wind down at night. We're clear to go in, he said, showing her towards the large enclosed area where the wolves were at during the day. Just remember what I told you and you'll be fine, he said. Logan watched her take a deep breath and close her eyes for a moment to call in her power animal, Stripes, a beautiful toucan, to fill her with power. Okay, I'm ready, she said, opening her eyes. To Logan, she somehow seemed taller and more radiant as she moved towards the enclosure entrance. Logan led and called out to Pete, the alpha male, named after Harriet's grandfather. Pete, a large gray wolf who had been homed here after he was hit by a car up in the mountains one night, turned to look at Logan. Recognizing him, Pete made a move towards Logan, but stopped when he saw Jenny. Jenny kept her composure and stayed beside Logan. She felt compelled to intuitively surround the situation with Reiki energy, knowing this dispelled anxiety in her humans' clients. Pete's eyes continued locking on Jenny, but Logan could see that the fur on his ridgeline was softening back down. Hi, Pete, I'm Logan's friend, she said, calmly knowing that animals understood more than we thought they did. Pete's gaze softened, and he made his way slowly toward Logan and Jenny. There you go, boy. Look what we brought you, Logan said, reaching into the bag he pulled out of his backpack. Logan always made a special treat for them of liver pâté that they loved. He handed a small square to Jenny, and she held out her hand to Pete. "Here you go, boy," she said, holding the treat out. Pete moved slowly towards Jenny, making full eye contact with her now. He got to within a foot of her, and she put it down in front of him. Pete smelled the liver and gulped it down, moving closer to Jenny. She gasped as Pete nuzzled her hand and leaned against her leg. "Someone's got a new friend," Logan said, laughing as he hugged Pete and welcomed in the rest of the pack, who had moved in closer after seeing their leader so comfortably with Jenny. Jenny was now the one transfixed, as she had not felt so light and free in a while. She realized that animals must be part of her calling, although she just wasn't sure how yet. She looked up at Logan smiling, and he thought he had never seen someone so beautiful as the lavender-haired girl in front of him now. Chapter 12, The Awakening. As Jenny and Logan were bonding with wolves, a different kind of bonding was going on at the beach. After a long night of flowers, candlelit dinner, and a walk on the beach, Jade and Rob had settled into a comfortable rhythm of conversation. It was just as Jade had imagined. Rob listened intently to her stories about growing up as a child who felt out of place in a wealthy family. "I always thought I came from somewhere else, like they weren't really my parents," she said sadly. "They cared for me, which usually meant buying my love. I guess in their own way they loved me," she said, feeling like a weight was lifting off her. She had never been able to talk to any man like this before. Rob watched Jade as if suspended in a dream. He felt like they had spoken these words to each other a long time ago, but that was crazy. They had just met a few weeks ago. Oh my gosh, this chapter's starting. I'm getting so warm. Okay, I have to peel off some layers. Hold on. It's an audiobook with a twist, y'all. I don't do things the normal way. Oh God, even I'm tongue-tied. He knew one thing, and that was he must have her body and soul. He had never felt this way about anyone before. It didn't matter that she was a spoiled rich girl with parents she didn't appreciate, and he was a loner who was given up by his parents and had thus given up on love. He felt there was something bigger here than he could consciously explain at the moment, so he decided to just let it ride, as Steele would say. Or Steele would say something like, "Let it ride." Before they knew it, night had turned to dawn, and they realized they had been sitting on the beach for hours. "Wow, time flies," Jenny said sleepily as they saw the rising sun starting to break over the horizon. "Yeah, wow, I didn't realize we were here all night." Rob realized he hadn't craved a drink all night, too. "Want to go get some breakfast? I'm staying close by, and it's completely private. They'll take good care of us there," he said, hoping she would accept. He realized he had forgotten to tell her about his session with Jenny and decided it wasn't the right time. "Sure, I would love some coffee. Where is this place?" she asked. "It's a surprise. You're going to love it. Just trust me," he said, feeling more confident than he had in a long time. Somehow, his British accent, which rarely came out nowadays, got stronger. I'm going to have to develop one. And as she watched the first rays of sunshine in his golden hair, she felt her heart soften a little. But Sparks, no, she didn't think so. It didn't feel like anything more than just friends, Jade. Rob helped Jade up from the blanket he had spread the night before. He was stiff and realized he was getting out of shape. "Hey, let's get some breakfast and then go for a run. What do you say?" he asked, surprising even himself. "I know I'll beat you," she said, teasing him. "Well, then it's on," he said. They gathered up their things and made their way up the beach to the car. "This place isn't far, so buckle up," he said, helping her in. She realized her phone hadn't buzzed all night, so Alejandro was playing nice and being on standby, just as he said. She decided to text him and let him know she was okay, and he could go on enjoying his weekend with Joaquin. As they pulled onto the coast highway, Rob made his way to Soul Step. It was a short drive, and soon Jade started to get nervous about where they were going. "Where exactly is this place again?" she asked. "We're here," he said, as the car reached the front drive. to Soul Step. Oh, no, you're kidding me, she said incredulously. Of all the places, and you're here? She couldn't believe they were at her brother's place. What is it? Stop teasing me, he said. I'm not teasing. This is my brother's place, she said, surprised. But how did you know that? I don't know that. I just happened upon it yesterday when I needed a place to stay. Come on, there's a private entrance to my suite. Nobody has to know you're here. Let's just order breakfast and then we can leave. If anything, I need to check it out. That is, unless you want to... Oh, he needs to check out. And probably check it out, too. That is, unless you want to stay longer. There, he had said it. He had put himself out there with no sense of how she would respond. He stopped the car at the entrance and looked over at her, staring into her eyes. Oh, this is what the best part is. She was trembling, and he touched her hand. And right then she felt it. The electric spark that Jenny had told her about. At that moment, she almost couldn't control herself. She felt a mixture of passion, deep longing, and sadness. You're trembling, love, he said. Let's get you inside, and I promise it will be okay. Well, you don't know my brother, then, she said. But she wasn't stopping him either, as he pulled the car down the drive and back to Sky's private entrance. He stopped the Mercedes and got out to look around. Good, no one's here. It's too early, he thought. It's too early. No one's up yet, so let's get you inside, he said, moving around to her side of the car. She opened the door and he offered his hand, which she held on to tightly as she got out. What was that? He thought to himself as their hands touched. Jade stumbled as she got up and fell forward, as Rob reached his other hand out to grab her arm. Regaining her balance, she slowly looked up into his eyes, and time seemed to stand still. What they didn't realize was that Sky was up early too, and just happened to hear a car pull up to his private entrance. Must be Rob, he thought, as he looked at the security camera that had a very clear view of a large black Mercedes, Rob, and a red-haired girl who just happened to be falling into Rob. What the... Sky said out loud, realizing just who the red-haired beauty was. Oh no, he is not going to have his way with my sister. Since Rob had checked in, Sky had done a little internet search on the singer and didn't like a lot of what he saw. Drinking, cavorting around with a band, and a different woman in every Instagram photo he saw. I don't care how famous he is, I am not letting this happen. Just as Jade was about to let herself be lost in Rob, a door opened and Sky came rushing out. Get your hands off my sister, Rob! Sky was yelling and rushing at the singer, who he thought would be no physical match for him. He's too out of shape from all that drinking, Sky thought, as he led with a left hook. Jade screamed and moved just before a punch landed square on Rob's jaw. Sky, stop it, Jade screamed. You're hurting him. Stop! Jade, you get inside my office right now, Sky yelled, just as Rob landed a punch of his own straight to Sky's gut. Both of you, stop it. This is ridiculous. Jade had seen Sky act like this before, and it wouldn't end nicely. The only way to calm him was to go inside his office and let him follow. Rob, I have to go with Sky. Just leave us, okay? She was pleading now because she didn't want to see him hurt. She knew what Sky could do with all the Eastern self-defense stuff he was always practicing. She moved quickly towards Sky's office. Jade, you don't have to listen to him. You're a grown woman, Rob said, just before Sky hit him on the temple, and Rob fell to the ground dazed. Mr. Strom, you may find your own way out of the hotel now. Consider this your checkout notice, Sky said, brushing himself off and moving towards Jade, who was irate now. She knew it was no use arguing with him, but she couldn't or wouldn't believe what had just happened as Sky shut the door behind them. What in the hell was that? Jade screamed. You know what it was. You were going to ruin yourself with him. Of all people, Jade. Don't you know anything about him? He's a womanizer and a drunk, Jade. Is that what you want for yourself? He screamed at her. Well, it's not going to happen here. As Rob sat up, still dazed from the last punch, he saw someone moving towards him. His vision was a little blurry, and he didn't realize it was Chandra until she was standing over him. What the heck happened here? Oh, no, I can't do the Creole accents, she said, letting her Creole accent take over. Rob, right, are you okay, dear? She said, although clearly he wasn't. Now, as was Chandra's way, when she sensed the danger, she immediately called in psychic protection to the situation. She didn't know all the details, but somehow she knew that Sky was involved. It was Sky, wasn't it? She said, helping Rob up. He leaned into her a little, and she could feel his energy around her more strongly now. And then she understood why so many women found him irresistible. It was just in his energy field, and all around him he exuded such masculine sexuality and sensuality that most women couldn't help but fall for him. She also started to feel more into what had happened. "This is about Jade Monroe, isn't it?" she said assuredly. She was almost never wrong. "But how do you know about Jade?" he said, still dazed and now becoming confused about what was happening. "Let's get you to your room and get you cleaned up. I think I know what's going on here," she said. She let him lean on her for a moment as they made their way to the entrance of his suite. "You've seen Jenny, haven't you?" she said, feeling Jenny's energy around him. "How did you know?" He stopped mid-sentence. "Oh, don't worry. Jenny didn't say anything. It's just what I do, you know, and Jenny's my best friend, so I know her energy anywhere," she said. He seemed to remember something about her being a psychic, but his head was pounding from that last blow, and it was all he could do to get into his room and slump down on the couch to regain his strength. Chandra went to the bathroom to get a cold cloth for Rob's head. When she returned, he was standing and stuffing his clothes into a bag. "Well, that was foolish of me," he said, talking more to himself. "I have no idea that they were related when I asked her to come here." "No need to explain, love," she said, handing him the cloth. "I'm going to talk to him. If anyone can calm him down, it's me. I'll check on Jade for you, too, if you like," she said, knowing he was concerned about her. Now, Jade and Chandra had never really seen eye to eye. Jade was skeptical about all that psychic business, and that made her butt heads with Chandra. But Chandra knew how Jenny loved Jade, and Chandra could feel a scared little girl in Jade's energy. So she put up with her and always felt compassion for her more than anything. "Tell her to call me," he said, holding the cloth to his temple. Chandra left and walked confidently towards Sky's office. This situation called for tact, understanding, and a little of her southern charm. If there was anything she knew about Sky Monroe, it was that he couldn't resist her, and that gave her the upper hand in any situation. "Sky, love, it's me," she said, knocking on the door. "Not now, Chandra," Sky said through the door. Jade, who wasn't going to let herself be bullied again by Sky, took out her phone and texted Alejandro, "Come get me, please. I'm at Soul Step." "He's not coming over here again if that's what you're doing," Sky said as he watched her send the text. "Sky, I don't know what's come over you, but this may be the last time we ever see each other again," she said, crying as she moved towards the door. She opened the door to Chandra standing there. "Oh, great, and now there's Chandra," she said, sobbing. "Thanks for nothing, Sky," she said, running outside. She didn't stop until she reached the main entrance and decided to walk towards home rather than wait for the limo. She figured Alejandro would find her, and if not then, plenty of people would love to stop and give the saucy redhead a ride home. When Alejandro saw the text, he was in the hot tub with Joaquin. He didn't like the look of it at all. Soul Step of all places. He knew that Jay and Sky were at odds, so he felt compelled to hurry over there. "I've got to go, man. Duty calls," he said, trying to sound like it was all business. "It's always Jade first, isn't it?" Joaquin said in Spanish, trying to conceal his disappointment. "I know. I love you too, dear," he said, kissing Joaquin passionately as he got up and made his way inside to get dressed. Seeing Alejandro move like that with a toss of his long blonde hair and muscular naked body always brought Joaquin to his knees, and he knew he couldn't stay mad at him for long. The limo raced out of the drive from the bungalow that Alejandro had conveniently rented for himself and Joaquin, only 15 minutes from Jade's house. Soul Step was another 20 minutes north, so he knew a lot could happen in that time, and he hoped for Sky's sake that he didn't have to get rough. That had happened once before, and it wasn't pretty.